Hi, I'm Patrick.
Hi, I'm Sim.
And we're
Wizard Core.
All right, we're back. We took a quick little break, and now we're back to get back to back.
To back.
Yes.
Back to back to back.
Continue, my friend.
Oh, yeah. So
So where we left off was where...
they are now heading to the hangar bay because they're close. The three. Andy, Captain Badass, and Rain.
So the pregnant chick has just fallen out. The way she ate shit during that fall too.
Shit, that was definitely a stunt person too.
Yeah,
another.
And
that was not a CGI'd fall for sure.
In fact, I almost don't even know how they did it because it didn't look. It looked like she did it. Yeah. It looked like she just straight did it.
Yeah, like she the initial when she first takes off, it holds on her like falling.
It pushes in over to show like she's falling.
Yeah, like, she's like falling now.
Yeah,
and but she wakes up.
She wakes up and then
she's like looking around the place.
Yeah,
and sprinklers turn on for atmosphere reasons.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly why, but there's like a railing thing, and I think she hears the alien and she tries hiding, and she gets under the railing, and then the alien
like jumps on top.
It's like right above her.
Yeah, this is the scene that I really think that Alien Isolation had
for sure.
It felt very like run and hide sort of feel to it, where it's just like when you're running through the hallways and you like jump in the locker and you're like, please don't find me, please don't find me, please don't find me.
And credit to Isabella Marced. She is in that particular scene, she looks fucking terrified.
Oh yeah.
You can tell she's scared shitless.
Yes.
And is trying not to breathe.
Yeah.
So that this thing doesn't get her, basically.
And then she steps out after she sees the xenomorph take off with two bodies.
Which are the two people that just died, basically.
Yeah. And then she goes to the door, and then on the opposite end of the door is
the other
three. And this is another favorite scene of mine, because it's a great conversation to be had in a horror movie, which is also similar to the one in the first Alien movie when the Kane gets the face hugger on his face, and they want to bring him up to try to like surgically remove it, but Ripley won't allow him back on board, and the captain's like, yeah, you know what, do it anyways, or they do it anyways. But the Rain and Captain Badass, who's Captain Badass, it's his sister, and this is also when he finds out that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
They're like, open the fucking door, and she's like, open the door.
She's begging them,
and they see in the corner that the xenomorph is there again.
It's like
and he's in.
What is it called when something's like on like a high, when a predator's on a high ground, like on the edge of something? He's perched. Perched. Just kind of waiting, basically.
And Andy like looks at it, and they're like, open the fucking door, and it's like that, like, so we can get her out of there. And that's very much like the emotional like
core of what's happening right now.
But like that would be the like dumb decision to make, like, oh, I'm gonna open the door to get her out, and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then in another horror movie, and Andy, I almost called him Alan and thought I called him Alan.
It's fucking Jurassic Park. Alan.
Alan. The xenomorph just goes, Alan. Andy has a dream, and then he like turns over in the space. What a movie it would be if that's like Andy fell asleep at the beginning, and he like turns over and sees a xenomorph, and
that's how the next one opens.
The xenomorph sticks out its mouth, and the second mouth goes, Andy.
Oh my god.
Anyways,
that's fucking
but
hilarious.
Andy's looking at it, and he's like, that's what it wants us to do. Yeah. He's like, I'm not opening that door. And he's the only one that has access to. So it's like him, he's the only one that can open it. He has full control. He's like, that's what it wants us to do.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not opening that door. And they're like, everybody's like begging and pleading with him.
I mean, it gets to the point. So I love that they're begging him, because they're all begging him for different reasons.
Yeah.
Because obviously pregnant woman. She's begging him because she's
terrified. She's terrified. In the fucking room with it.
Rain is begging him because she wants Andy that she knows to open the door.
Yeah.
And the brother...
Because throughout this whole process, Rain kind of like says shit to herself. Like, about, like, she says
There's
stuff
a line where she's like, Andy, where are you? Or something like that.
That she's like, Andy, are you in there?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Like, she's, like, realizing that Andy's, like, not really there. Andy.
And then the brother, literally at one point, he, like, gets on his knees and is, like, literally begging him to open the door. And Andy's still just stone cold, like, no. Yeah. I'm not opening the door.
And then the blood hits the window and it swings her up, and then the brother just breaks down crying. Yeah, and he's like, you're so, and he turns to Andy, and I'll give it to Captain Badass's actor here. They like he did really well showing like that.
I just watched my sister die.
Yeah, and he's like, you're supposed to be one of us. You know, he's like, you're supposed to help us. You're supposed to be one of us. And
this comes perfectly back into what Rook was. This comes back to that conversation about saying like, "Oh, humans are going to be emotional. You need to do what's
the logical thing,
the logical thing that is still within the best interest of the company, basically."
And that's what you.
That's where that gets revealed. Actually,
is the next scene is they're taking an elevator down to the lab, and then. That's where the sister asks. He's like, Andy.
Oh, I almost forgot about the lab stuff. Okay.
And then that's when Andy asks. Not Andy. That's when Rain asks. He's like, Andy, what's your directive? Yes. Isn't your directive to look out for the best of me? And he's like, no, I have a new directive. It's what's best for the company.
And the way she asks him too, she like is kind of like horrified because she knows that it's not what it used to be because he's acting too fucking weird. Yeah, he's not doing what's in the best interest of her anymore.
He also says something back to her. I forgot what exactly it is, but it's a reference to like leaving somebody behind. Oh. He's like, because he's like, you've never done that before, and he's like, what, left somebody behind?
Yes, that's
he's
it.
Like,
it's so cold.
Yeah,
and
he's like,
perfectly cold.
And he's like referring back to like her leaving him behind, and that's the moment where I was like, oh, he is fucking salty about that. Like he's hurt. Yeah, and he like even if Andy was like really in there. Like like this new Andy is like letting that emotion kind of like show through. Yes, he says something.
Again, such good fucking writing. Yeah, such good writing.
She's like, she's like, I want the old Andy, and he's like, and then he says something. Old Andy wouldn't let that happen, and he like responds with like, what, leave somebody behind, and he just looks at her.
He almost looks like straight through her.
And you're like, ooh, God, got her. Like it's just like.
But also,
he comes back at her hard with that one.
But also from a plot perspective, they're in this like lab.
That's the elevator going down to the lab, and then
after this happens, they go into the lab.
They go into the lab, and that's when the whole directive of what's the best interest in the company.
And this is where they actually really tied it in a subtle way. They tied it.
To Prometheus. And Covenant.
Yeah, because they in a way that actually like works.
Yeah, which research that Romulus is doing involves the black goo.
Yeah, it involves the black goo from Prometheus and Covenant.
They're trying to, because they talk about how the mining planet and other planets, the death toll is so high because the human body can't withstand the like pressure and the living conditions.
He basically just says that like humans. Bodies aren't really meant for like deep space travel.
Yeah, and that evolution isn't fast enough for humans, but
it's not happening quickly enough.
And so that the black goo that they have and found on like the planet and from the derelict ship and stuff, it can be injected and studied, and when injected can make like super beings.
Yeah, because they show some footage, like it's just literally like test footage of a rat or a mouse.
They kill a rat. They like smash it and then they inject it,
and it like animates itself. Yeah. It like completely fixes itself and everything.
Which then when they leave,
but it shows what happens after
is like it mutates into something else.
and the way you know what's great about that? They didn't. So they actually show the footage after they show what happened to the rat.
Yes,
and the rat is like completely disfigured.
Yeah,
I don't even know what it looks.
You see it on the counter throughout the scene, but you don't know what the fuck it is.
And the characters didn't really even notice it because, and it makes sense why they didn't notice it because they
don't see the video of it further.
Well, they don't see the video of it further, but they also where it was like not.
So
anyways.
Yeah. In the lab, Andy gets the black goo.
They have like this little like multi-tube thing that's like cryogenically.
Gonna leave back out the way they came, Rain sees on the video. She's like, "Do you see it?" And then
that was a great moment too. And it's just
and then
there.
They all look at the video and they look down the corridor. It's like the video, and it's like hiding in the corridor. And then Captain Badass is like, "Oh, it's hunting us."
Yeah, and that's when Andy is like. He's like, agreed. We need to take care of this.
Yeah, and he pulls out the pulse rifle. Yes. Makes its good return with a little bit of an upgrade.
And the upgrade makes perfect. So it has the upgrade that we're talking about.
Basically has the smart gun auto assist. So the smart gun from Aliens.
But the way it does it is amazing.
Yeah, so it has part
that what is it called? The part that hits your shoulder that's supposed to
shoulder
help
pad.
The shoulder pad has a little it's not it has a little thing that comes out and it like goes under your armpit and to the back of your arm and like squeezes
and through the scope he kind of like runs it down for like in the Alien. This is a callback to the Aliens as well is when Hicks is going over it with Ripley with the pulse rifle, but like with the new upgrade, and goes through it is that when you aim it, and then he says, "Look at Andy through the scope," and then he's like, "Hold the trigger halfway." And it's like, see, it locks on for you.
And it like it basically like it makes your arm move in the direction that things are at, basically, which was so like so simple and so like a well thought out movie weapon. It was cool.
And so they get guns, and they're like, very cool, very cool. But so they get guns, and they're like, at least this will help us fight it. And then Andy's immediately like, nope. They're like, why? And he's like, we're in the bottom level of this ship, and they have acid blood. If you shoot one of them, the acid blood will drip, and we will all be sucked out into deep space. So basically, the gun is to make us look more threatening, but you cannot use it. Yeah. And they were like, well, that's a shitty plan, but it's all we got. Yeah. And so then they leave the lab, and then that's when it reveals the rat mutates. But then they leave the lab, and then they go down the hall, and Andy just stops. And then all you see is the flashlight.
You're good. Sorry.
All you see is the flashlight go on Andy. And they have the almost like an Evil Dead like callback in itself where it does the like super zoom in with the
or push in Dutch angles where it like reveals that there's been more face huggers the entire time. And they're in a fucking nest, and there's actually more xenomorphs in the fucking basement. Yeah. And they're like, oh well, and there's a hive down there. Yeah. And they're like, oh well, this is a bad idea. Let's go try a different route. And so they're about to leave, like it's smart. And then they hear somebody trying to talk or scream, and Captain Badass thinks, oh shit, that's my sister. And I want to hold on this moment for a second. This movie does that a lot, where it acknowledges the horror movie tropes and says, we're not going to do that. And then does the horror movie trope in a way that makes sense. Yeah. That where the characters have motivation to continue on into the trope. Yeah. Where it doesn't feel cheap. Yeah. This movie does that a lot. Yeah. In such a smart way. Yeah. Continue.
No, yeah. But so they go and they get the sister and they cut her out.
Yeah,
and
she's in a hive like in the other movies.
Yeah, and that's when they see everybody.
And they explained why she wasn't fully like.
So she's losing a lot of blood, and then Andy says that explains why there isn't a dead face hugger in front of her because she's already dying. There's no point.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they're like, well, He's like, you can inject her with the black goo.
And again, they don't know what the black goo will really do to her, so they think it'll just like give her like super or whatever.
Captain Badass almost does it, and then this Rain is like, don't do it. It's like we can get
her out.
We
basically.
can get her out because we have enough time to go and get her on the ship and put her in a cryopod before she bleeds out. And so they decide to go with that, and they pocket the black goo, and they book it. They book it to the elevator, and they get to the elevator, and they're waiting for the elevator, and she starts. The sister starts. Pregnant sister starts like slowing down and like bleeding more and not doing well. Yeah. And so they have to set her down while they're waiting for the elevator. And then Andy sees one of the xenomorphs come out from one of the hive things, and so does Captain Badass. Yeah. And so it sees the tail go after Rain, and so Captain Badass jumps in front of the tail and gets stabbed. Yeah. Through the shoulder. Yeah. By it, and then he looks down at it, and Rain turns around and sees that he jumped in front of it for her, and then he gets sucked up into one of the tail.
The alien hoists him up further upwards, literally into
and then it
more of the nest.
And then all these aliens are surrounding him, and he's like, "Is that all you got, motherfucker?" And then as soon as he yells that, it shoots its mouth him, shoots him in the fucking eye, and it's gory and shit. But he goes out, saving her like Captain Badass. But
yes, he goes out like the name Captain Badass
because he can't shoot. I realized, I was like, why did he had the gun and he was aiming it, but he can't. I realized he couldn't shoot them, but he was just talking shit anyways till he was well,
he couldn't because he would have died anyways. It's
so he was talking shit, and then it killed him. But then the elevator gets and when it comes down and hits, when it stabs him, it knocks down Andy, and Andy starts convulsing again. Yeah. And so the sister, Rain, grabs the pregnant sister, gets on the elevator, goes up, leaves Andy behind. And then gives the container to the pregnant sister, and says, "You go ahead. If I'm not back in by
whatever time,
you go on without us. I'm going back for Andy because he's still my brother."
Yeah, because they basically left. That was actually a good moment for his character, dude, because he's just there convulsing, and it does this shot implying that even though he's convulsing, he's still aware of what's going on. He almost starts crying or something like that. Continue.
And so she stops the elevator and takes the ladder back down, and then the pregnant sister continues up, gets on the ship, and
she's just in a lot of pain and everything too at this point. So
she takes the fucking injection of the black goo to the neck anyway. She does it herself. Yeah. So something bad's gonna happen later. Yeah. And then Rook comes on. The message,
he's trying to seem
he's trying to be your friends are dead, just take off right now. And then she's just not right now. Yeah. And so I almost Rain. Ash
Ash,
this evil
Ash
dad
comes in
with the chainsaw hand. Rain goes back down and with the gun, and goes and finds Andy, who's still convulsing, and she goes to pull out the
there's a thing in his neck that's where the little chip thing is
resets, and he tries to stop her
because he still has the secondary chip thing in.
She says that is if you don't let me do this, we both die, and I don't think that's the interest in the company either, and it's not in my interest, and so you have to let me take this out. And so he does.
He kind of slowly just is fine, basically.
He accepts it. She takes out the Weyland-Yutani science officer chip, puts it back, and then he's back to being...
And there was a good moment when that happens too. He's literally I'm so sorry that I did all this to you.
He's just Rain, I'm sorry. He's aware that what he
doesn't just forget it. Yeah, he still remembers everything.
Because for a second I thought if he was going to be Rain, where are we? I was going to be that's kind of shitty. But he still knows what he did and stuff like that. He's Rain, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Which is a really good character moment.
Just payoff because she came back for him and stuff, and she still can't, because it goes, payoff for her too, for initially not having the heart to tell him that she was going to leave him behind, but she didn't, but then all the aliens, the alien hive comes down.
Yeah, they're swarming at this point.
And
they're
so
coming
they have
to get
to back up all the way because she can't shoot them. And so they back up and they try to get out one way. And then
it doesn't work.
Yeah,
basically.
and then Rook comes on and is like basically like, I'm not letting you guys out,
Yeah.
so you guys are fucked. Goodbye. And then
yeah,
she shoots at the computer because she's pissed, and they hold hands and they sit down.
And it calls back to the beginning of the movie because they start telling jokes to one another.
She's like, tell me one more joke.
Yeah.
And he says first, he's like, why doesn't monsters eat clowns? And then he's like, because they taste funny. And she's like, what's another one?
Meanwhile, they're coming at them slowly and everything.
He says one about gravity.
Yeah, and I forget what it was, but then
she realized
it like clicks in her head. She's like, wait a minute,
the gravity. The
gravity
thing
can be turned off.
Yeah, the gravity thing from earlier.
Yeah.
Which will be like on and off. Because I forgot to mention earlier too that they turned that thing off.
Yeah, they turn it on basically.
Yeah,
after a certain point.
They turn it off again so that the gravity is switching on and off. And
the aliens basically have no traction anymore, so they're like stuck in midair.
They're stuck, and then also that the blood is gonna float, but they don't know if it's gonna work exactly. Because he even like Andy's behind her and says, "Is this gonna work?" And she's like,
"I don't know.
We'll find out right now." And then she shoots, and the first one goes down and it works. So she's
we get to see this rifle in all of its glory.
Yes,
she annihilates these
like
aliens.
This whole fucking and she has like, what did they say, 450 rounds? So she basically just sits there and turrets all of them. Just auto aims all these motherfuckers.
Exactly.
In this hallway, which leads to another great fucking scene.
Yeah, because so at this point they're dead.
Yeah,
but
not like, all of them. Enough to get to the elevator.
That were in front of them, basically. That were swarming them. They're dead. But they're in 0G, and the acid blood is floating. Yeah. And they have to go in the direction of the acid blood. So they have to fucking maneuver their way in both of them maneuver their way in 0G around all of it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was thinking about that as it was happening. I was like, are they gonna have to go through the acid blood? And they did, and I was like, fuck yes.
Yes. There's so many good setup and like consequences to actions in this movie.
It's immediate too. Like it's great. Like, continue. This movie is great.
They get to the elevator, which isn't called back down, and they can't call it back down because the gravity's off. So they have to shoot
and they showed that too. They showed how it literally mechanically wouldn't work.
Yeah. And so they jump up and they say, she's like, are you ready? And he's like, yeah. And so he goes up, and then she tries to go up, but the alien grabs her. I think it's the alien that was...
It's one alien that like...
I think it was the first alien. I think that's kind of like the main bad alien that's like following them around.
It was.
Is like because
it's kind of fucked up too.
Yeah, because it grabs her foot and she has to shoot its arm off.
Yeah.
And then she starts flying up.
So she's a little bit.
But the timer for the gravity to come off is
it's ticking away.
It's ticking away, and then all these aliens like come out, and so she's kind of far behind Andy, and Andy's able to stop himself on the elevator, and she tosses her gun up, and it gets lodged in the ladder, and she almost gets to Andy.
because they also have a literal timer on them because the ship's system lets people know when the gravity is going to come back on. And keep in mind, they're literally in an elevator shaft, so she's about to straight up fall.
Yeah,
which
happens because she doesn't make it to Andy,
and she falls.
She free falls for a while. I thought for a second
I thought she was gonna die.
Me
honestly.
too. I was
like,
really.
She's dead.
This is the type of movie I was like, is she about to die right now?
And the way that she doesn't die is brilliant.
Yeah, and
the alien catches her with its tail.
Yeah,
but it doesn't stab her. It catches her.
Yeah, because this alien has something very personal against her.
This alien has a vendetta.
Yeah, and it grabs her. And it's like
it's a little recreation of like the alien. Really from
and not
when
only that,
it gets
it
in
doesn't
Ridley's
even
face.
like attempt
Ripley's
to
face.
like eat her because it like waits for a face hugger to like come near to like try to impregnate her. Yeah, and she looks down. Oh no! Even before that, when the gravity comes back on, the elevator comes down and like crushes because the because the acid blood falls down and it's sucking all the space is sucking all the
That's
fucking
right. Yeah, that did happen.
shit out,
Yeah.
and so the elevator comes back down and crushes all the aliens and kind of stops blocks
the initial swarm because
the
entire
swarm
time
and then blocks the space from sucking everybody out. I don't know if that would actually work, but there's fucking semantics of sci-fi.
It worked in the movie and it made sense.
Yeah. Who gives a fuck? If an elevator would really stop, a hole in a breach.
It was a heavy ass elevator. I'll say that much.
But she survives and the alien survives, so it gets on top of her in the elevator.
Yeah.
And then waits for a face hugger to come out and go jump on her face. But then Andy comes flying down the elevator shaft with the pulse rifle, shoots the fuck out of that thing. Shoots the fuck out of the face hugger, then starts shooting the alien, lands on the alien, rides the alien down the elevator shaft on top of it to the bottom, continues to unload the rest of the clip. It's almost comedic. Yeah. I almost thought it was comedic how many fucking
he annihilates
and
it.
then he says the classic line, "Get away from her, you bitch." But he says it like Andy, where he goes, "Get away from her, you," and then he kind of glitches out. Yeah, and then he's like, "Bitch."
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yes.
It was a perfect moment. And then they get back into they get back to the ship that they came on, right? Mm-hmm. And then why can't they get back onto the ship that they came from and they're getting ready to go?
Yeah. And then that's when
they put the sister
into cryo
sleep.
They get off, they shut it
Rook
still thinks that Andy's working for him, but he's not, so they shut him off, and then they're gonna go.
Well, because he initially, Rook gets them out initially with autopilot, and then
they shut off.
They shut it off, and there's a good moment where what does she say to Rook? That was what he said to her basically earlier.
I'll take your petition in for consideration.
Yeah, and then she just shuts the feed off.
He says that to her when she's trying to escape at the earlier, 10-15 minutes earlier, and then she says that to him when he's like, "You don't understand what you're doing with this thing and stuff," and he's like, "That's what she says," and then shuts him off, and then Romulus and Remus hits the rings, and then obviously Rook gets killed, and the whole space station gets
the space station is basically being grinded to death by the ring, basically, which was a great visual, by the way. So it seems like the movie's about to wrap up.
Yes,
but we got
10 more minutes,
and they're a good 10 minutes. But there's
overall,
but it's a kind of a strange 10 minutes.
It's a very. This is
where the movie gets a little bit dumber.
I did see reviews for the movie where I try to stay away from as much as possible for this movie. And a lot were saying the final ask. You did this last episode.
Yeah.
The
act.
The act is divisive or grotesque, and it gets weird and might divide fans.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because 2 other Alien movies have done this before,
and they've done it so much worse.
Yes. This, I think, like we talked about driving back from this movie. This is the best way they have done it, but anyway, we'll get to it. So they put the pregnant sister in.
They put her into the cryo, and Rain is getting ready. She puts I don't remember if she puts Andy in cryo or not.
No, Andy's sleeping because he's supposed to be she's getting ready for cryo.
Yeah, he's supposed to just be watching.
Yeah, and they have a nice moment too because right before she
changes his directive.
She hooks him up to the ship. He's gonna go to sleep, and he's hooked up to the ship in case anything happens.
And
so
it's
he
also
can wake up,
charging him or whatever.
And so he can pilot if anything happens. So he goes to sleep. But beforehand, she says set a course for
wherever
the place, going. And he said, "I thought I couldn't go," and she said, "It doesn't matter. You're coming with me. We'll figure it out when we get there. You're my brother." And he's like, "But the directive is whatever's best for Rain. And she says, change it to whatever's best for us.
Yeah.
And so that's a sweet little moment and payoff for the two characters, the brother. It's the perfect end for their story arc together throughout the movie.
So then it seems they're kind of like wrapping things up, and then all of a sudden in the pregnant woman's cryo, all of a sudden the cryogenic like warning lights come on, and it says something like there's like vital organs or whatever that are like, you know, making it so that she can't stay in cryo, basically. And Rain's like, what? And so they open it up, and
the pregnancy has accelerated.
Hardcore.
Her belly
She has a basketball.
Yes. And she's ready to burst.
Yeah, and
but
she does.
not stomach wide. It's like an actual birth.
Correct. It's a literal birth.
But it's an egg. She births an egg.
Yeah, and Rain immediately is like, oh shit, like this is clear. Like, I don't even think they established like with each other that the pregnant woman took the injection.
Yeah,
she just is like immediately goes into action mode.
She sees it because
that's right. Like, she sees the injection point.
She's like, fuck, because she sees the injection points like all fucking weird and shit.
Yeah. So she immediately grabs the egg,
but it's like acid.
Yeah.
And so she like tries to put a rag around it and take it over. She rips the umbilical cord because there's an umbilical cord attached to the egg.
Yes.
She rips it, tries to grab a rag to carry the egg, and drops it because it burns through, and it starts burning through the hull of the ship.
Yeah.
Into the shuttle area.
It goes into where the ore is being stored.
The ore container. Yeah.
Which we also learn, which I didn't know, but it makes sense. It's actually, it can be detached from the ship, basically.
Yeah.
So, and also before it like went down, it kind of
like
opens a little bit,
and you see a human face.
Yeah,
and it looks a lot like the engineer face from Prometheus.
And this is where, from a design perspective, it gets a little weird.
Even she goes down there, and there's still the creep factor because she grabs like the cryo thing.
Yeah, she grabs like a freeze gun thing.
Because they used it earlier to freeze the tail.
Correct.
The base of the tail.
Yeah.
And then she goes down there to try to freeze the egg, but it's already hatched.
Yeah.
And then it's
and
the
you
shot
see,
from
and you see
up,
still,
and you see this thing move above her into the hull. And then that's when the ship is kind of tilting down, and so that's when Andy wakes up.
Yeah, I forget for whatever reason the ship is slowly kind of heading towards the rings again that they're on.
So Andy wakes up and puts it back in, like he adjusts it and puts it back in autopilot, and then goes down to see what's happening, and he finds the pregnant sister, now not pregnant, but birthed sister, like on the floor, like bleeding and shit, and she like looks at her like boobies, like where it's supposed to be lactating, and she's lactating like more fucking
just goo. It's weird.
And he's like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And she looks up and looks terrified, and Andy turns around, and this is one of the greatest, like, as an android, we talked about it, his reaction to this creature is so fucking funny to me, because he's just like, what the fuck? And sort of, like, look to him. Like, he puts his, like, hand up and shit, like, he doesn't know what the fuck. And this is the reveal of the human xenomorph hybrid, which, for me, I saw it, and I was like, okay. It's not that it's not cool.
It's not the concept.
It's not that it's cool. It's not the concept. It's just...
It's the literal design of it.
Yeah.
That kind of kills it a little bit. It's cool in concept, and it's executed in concept well.
I don't know.
It looks too humanoid.
It looks like Slender Man.
It just looks like a tall, gangly, naked man with a tail.
Yeah,
basically,
and then like razor elbows.
Yeah, that looks like the actor from Prometheus. Yeah, that played the
with
engineers.
The face of the engineer from Prometheus.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Which that didn't really make sense.
Me and Patrick agreed that we were like expecting when this was happening.
I wanted that thing to look gnarly.
Yeah, just grody as fuck.
Yeah. And it just wasn't.
It wasn't, and it would just, I don't know. took me out a little bit. Like every
Yeah.
time it showed its face,
Yeah.
like it wasn't that like I don't know. It looked like a dude named Greg. You know?
Yeah. Yes.
And I was
yeah.
like, I don't know. He's just fucking weird. It just looked like a weird dude.
Yeah, exactly. It basically was just a tall, gangly dude with a tail and black eyes and was bald and was pale.
Yeah. And that was my second like nitpick of the movie. And not that this whole sequence wasn't great as well. So it slices
The sequence itself was fantastic.
Yes. It's a good last like
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Maybe 15.
I think it was shorter than that.
Yeah, it didn't last very long.
I remember thinking I was happy that it was as short as it was because I was already like fucking worn out from the rest of the movie. Not in a bad way, just like I was.
There was a lot of tension and everything.
Like we said, this movie is 2 hours and it does not waste a fucking minute. I said like 10 minutes spent on the planet and it goes straight into everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like fucking tensioned out. You know, it's just high anxiety the entire time. And it's at that point you thought if it ended and it hasn't, and then like this sequence is pretty genuinely quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't last very long.
And the
point is,
I think they did it shorter because they didn't know how people would react to
for sure.
creature. So they're like, probably don't have it in the movie that much, you know?
Yeah, but basically what happens is she is like having to fight it, and she tries to like cryo gun it to get it to freeze, but it like
doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and then he hits it and like punctures it, so it's like releasing the cryo gas everywhere, and it's taking the oxygen out of the air, and it's also freezing the environment basically. So she has to shut the door, and she's like losing oxygen basically. So she has to go into a classically designed alien spacesuit.
Yes.
And that was amazing.
Yes.
The fact that she got to do that. Mm-hmm. So then at this point, her plan is basically get that thing into this cargo bay and release it into space.
Because the ship itself is like holding the cargo.
It's clamping
thing.
Like a cargo
the container.
And
so you can physically have it let go from inside the container.
Yeah.
And so she has to go down there.
You can manually do it. That's
so she manually does 3 of them, and when she gets to the 4th one, it like attacks her, and then it like is about to attack her again, and then she hits the egg that has like some acid blood in it, and then
it eats through the bottom and it decompresses the thing.
Yeah, and so she flies out and she thinks it flew out with her, so she's climbing up.
Wait, before the way they did the sound design in that scene was great, because it's full sound design and it just goes to like pure silence. And she's in space. Yeah. She's dangling by a wire in space.
Yeah. And so she's trying to climb up back into the thing, and then it's not dead, and it swings out and grabs her. And it looks all fucked up because the ore that it was, whatever minerals it was, is like flying and like ripping its skin off, basically. Yeah. And it tries to like...
It tries to second mouth attack her.
I forgot as well that it kills the
it came back to the pregnant mom and killed her. Basically,
it used its second mouth to, I think, like vampire her.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It sucked her blood out and stuff like that.
Something like that.
It was clearly like a different kind of alien.
Yeah,
they didn't hold on that very long, and I kind of see why.
It just kind of happened. It just kind of goes back to her, and then happens, and then it slashes Andy's throat, and she finds Andy, and she's like, "No, don't die!" And then
he doesn't die.
He doesn't die. And then anyway, she climbs, and then
she's climbing up the rope.
She notices that the rope, and this is set up like 5 seconds earlier when she's like trying to
release everything.
That her rope is still hooked onto one of the fucking...
I don't remember what it's called.
The emergency release thing. And so she yanks it, and then it all falls down. It falls down, and it takes the creature with it, and it falls into the
basically, like, it releases it, and the thing falls around her, essentially, and she basically, like, stays tethered to the main ship, and the whole container falls around her, and so she's out of it now, and it just falls into the rings and gets like devastated, destroyed.
And it dies.
Like that thing is dead. There's
Yeah.
no way it survived that. And then basically what happens is she gets back up.
Yeah, she climbs back up. She puts Andy in a cryo chamber, and she said, "I'm gonna fix you." And she takes out his chip, and it's still green, so he's good.
Yeah, she takes out his chip so that like his personality and everything is still intact.
Yeah.
But like his body's fucked up kind of thing. So she's like retaining him.
Yeah.
And she has a little monologue basically as she's going into cryo sleep after that.
Yeah, I'm the sole survivor of this ship, and then if anybody who finds this log, because I think she's going into cryo sleep too, and they're just gonna drift out to wherever, kind of like how Alien ended. And just whoever finds it, she's the sole survivor, and she has Andy's chip. Basically.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends.
And when the credits rolled, I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, there was so little in that I had any issues with.
Yes.
What's his face's face being messed up, and specifically the design, not it existing. The design of the humanoid alien were weird and didn't fully gel.
Yes.
Other than that, the movie is literally like almost perfect.
Yes.
It's almost literally perfect.
Like we said, it's a very tight movie. Like they
do not waste a minute.
There is no ounce of fat, to me at least, in this movie.
There's none.
It is
it's so well paced.
Yes.
It's amazingly paced.
Yeah. It earns every minute of its 2-hour runtime. It's so good.
It's amazing. You wanted to have a little thing about Ridley Scott.
Oh shit! This is about to be 2 hours. We'll just
We'll
just break this up into 1 and 2 parts. How about that?
Sure, whatever.
Okay. So Ridley Scott. I have nothing against his early works in his directing of Alien and Blade Runner and all that other good stuff. I just think he falls into the category of that he's become in the past like 10, 15 years, the grumpy old man of like filmmaking. He just doesn't seem like he gives a fuck anymore.
He doesn't. And he's also like butthurt about certain things. Like he's butthurt that he didn't get to direct Blade Runner 2049.
Which he said he didn't give a fuck about, I thought, either. Like he was like, I don't care.
But then there was an interview with him where he's like, well, I wasn't even asked or something like that. And it's like, but you produced it.
And then when Neil Blomkamp was like all but greenlit to make his version of Aliens, all of a sudden he wanted to make Covenant after and then so they scrapped Blomkamp's version so he could make Alien Covenant. Like what the I just think this is the perfect example of like when you give a franchise to someone who gives a fuck, and there's no studio interference of that of the like 20th Century Fox. 20th Century Fox really fucked the pooch the past couple years.
Oh, for sure.
And it wasn't until like surprisingly Disney bought them out and kind of resurrected these franchises with like Prey before this. And then Romulus, and like did something new and interesting with both of these movies.
Oh, you missed it too. They did a fun thing with the 20th Century Fox thing. It like plays normally and just does this like and just stops, and then it goes straight into the movie. It's great.
That was great.
It's great. We didn't talk about that at all, but that was you missed that, and I was like, man, Sim would have loved that.
But so I have just this strong dislike for Ridley Scott, honestly,
because he I mean, he just doesn't. I feel like he just doesn't know what he's doing anymore.
And everything he's made, like House of Gucci,
it's been mid to bad.
Yeah, Napoleon was fucking terrible.
Yeah. Now he's about to make
House of Gucci was bad. Last Duel was just like
fine.
Meh. It was fine, but it just looked dull. It was long and drawn out. It was just like nothing was really like that good. I think that like The Martian was like the last decent thing he made, but even then I just didn't give a fuck enough about it.
The Martian was the last decent thing he made. And that was over a decade ago at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, look, Denis Villeneuve made a better movie than the original Blade Runner. Blade Runner 2049 is not only a great sequel, it's a superior movie to the first one. Fede Alvarez directed a sequel so good that it is at least
so did
between
James Cameron. Dude,
that's
Ridley
right.
Scott is
That's
literally
right.
the director who establishes good first movies and then just...
But I'm talking about in recent years specifically. Yeah. Like, so yes, James Cameron directed Aliens, and most people like it's that movie's so good that people like.
Yeah, you could argue that. So yeah, Denis Villeneuve did 2049, and then compared to like Prometheus and Alien Covenant recently,
Fidel Alvarez comes in and makes an Alien movie so good that you and I legitimately agree that it makes the Alien franchise an official trilogy now.
Yes, it makes it complete.
After 40 years.
Yes, it's in my opinion, it's the best Alien since Aliens. It's better than Alien 3 for fucking sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's better than Alien Resurrection.
For sure.
Better than... AVP is a fun, dumb action movie. I will give it that. But it is not...
It's not in the franchise.
Requiem is definitely one I want to talk about. AVP Requiem is
I haven't seen
one
it.
of my
Actually, I don't think I have.
top fuck you movies of all time. That movie is such a... I fucking hate that movie.
Yeah.
People were complaining about this being a teen slasher movie, but with aliens in it. No, that movie is literally... You could put in Freddy versus Jason and it would have been the same fucking plot line. Fuck that movie. I hate Requiem. Fuck that movie.
Makes me want to see it now because I don't think I've seen it.
Let's watch. I wish you could see the movie. It's so fucking dark, too. Whoever the cinematographer on that fucking movie is blind. That person is blind. He doesn't know what he's seeing. The movie sucks. You can't even... The shitty thing is that they made a cool Predator alien thing, and it looked practical, but you can't fucking see it. Oh, man, I could go off on that fucking movie.
I can
tell. You know, oh, God. Anyways, Romulus...
The anger is just
Romulus fits into an actual trilogy and feels complete after so many years. And just, like, I don't know. Man...
It's great.
Fuck Ridley Scott.
Yeah, Ridley Scott just needs to not direct anything anymore.
I don't know.
Because what is he coming out with? Gladiator 2. It's like,
what?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Like,
why now?
It's so dumb.
It's such an unnecessary...
It is unnecessary. Like, why did you...
Does he see, like, all his
other... people love Gladiator. Yeah, Gladiator's a great movie.
Does he see all these other movies of his getting sequels that are, like, good?
And he gets jealous.
And
he's like, I gotta go back.
now, and he's like, I could do this. I could do it.
It's like, dude, you're not George Miller.
Dude, if that
Let's face it, you're not
movie,
George Miller.
Yeah, oh no. Well, George Miller knows how to have fun. You see Ridley Scott in interviews. That man looks like he just wants to punch somebody in the face.
And then
George
take a
Miller,
nap.
Yeah, and then take a nap after his fucking Raisin Bran Crunch. Where George Miller just looks like the happiest little fucking... He looks like he lives in Hobbiton.
He does. And then makes the most...
Funny enough, he's Australian, not New Zealand. But, he just looks like a
Close enough.
He looks like a happy... You don't tell the Kiwis that, man.
No, I know.
That's some fucking fighting words right there.
Hate me, Kiwis.
But he just, he just looks like the fucking happiest man on earth and just happy to be doing the shit still.
Yeah.
And so, that's just like the difference,
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he hates movies still.
No, he looks like now he's finally gained enough notoriety to where he's so late in his life, but it's like revived him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I finally get to make all these things. Finally,
and he made one of the best. He made
the best action movie ever,
if not the best action movies.
We're gonna have to talk about Fury Road.
But Fury Road, 100%. But
Fury Road
I just have a personal issue with fucking Ridley Scott and coming back to franchises and just kind of like ruining. Just personally, because I grew up with Alien and Aliens, and I appreciate that he started franchises that are part of my childhood. And good fucking movies, but just
something in the past
back and
15,
destroyed
20
it.
Yeah, something about the past 15 to 20 years. He just like lost that edge.
Mm-hmm.
He lost. He's proven over like multiple movies now. He's just kind of like lost it.
Yeah.
And I don't think he wants it either. That's the thing. He
No.
thinks he wants it, but he doesn't really want it.
No.
You know, he should just retire. There's nothing fucking wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
just
there's nothing.
And even if you don't want to retire, just produce things.
Yeah.
He's a better producer now than anything.
Yeah.
Because as a director, I mean, Gladiator 2 is gonna that's gonna bomb so hard.
I hope it does.
I
have
would,
no interest in. I'm probably still going to see it because I see
just because.
everything.
Well, yeah, but just to
you know
see.
me, I see everything, but
Yeah, but
except some things that I kind of fell off of like big hype train, like mainly like Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Recently, and I don't know, like. Well, I know we shit talk more. There are good.
There's good. Marvel's easy to shit on, but they have a lot of really great things.
Kind of like
in
big
them. Studio,
big studio things that
CGI
just,
monstrosities that are really just meant to make money and not
to sound
really
like a pretentious. Because I love those like this summer has been fucking great because Deadpool, Wolverine, Wolverine. Twisters was a surprise to me.
You
I
told
actually
me.
really fucking like Twisters.
Yeah, you told me. I've actually heard that people were saying it's really good.
Alien Romulus. There's something else I watched this summer that was like a bigger, and I was like, fuck, that's like I'm not against these like big budget fun summer movies.
It's like a sleeper summer kind of. It's like you wouldn't expect these movies to be good, but they
just
are.
Been so shit recently.
For a long time too.
Just because there's been nothing like really. Because it felt like they've been giving people what they think they wanted rather than giving people what they've actually wanted, you know?
The Alien Romulus is exactly what you just said. This is what people have wanted for 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years.
Yeah.
And, I mean, look, the fact this is the first time we've done a two-part... It's early on in this podcast, dude. We agreed... in the middle of recording this podcast that this needed to be split up into two parts because this movie is worth seeing. First of all, go spend your fucking money and watch this.
Tell your friends to see this movie. Give it your money, please. If anything, there's so many movies this summer, surprisingly, that need to be seen because Deadpool and Wolverine made $1 billion.
A lot.
Hopefully. That shows that type of movie, and I need shit like
this.
I need shit like this to make money.
I mean, this movie is so good that we made a 2-part episode series about it. Like, that's how good this movie is.
Yeah.
Like, it's worthy of taking the time to literally talk about the entire plot and then talk about it as we just did. Mm-hmm. It's. I just remember we came out of the theater and we almost like were in shock for a second of like, did that like nail almost everything that it's been meaning to do?
Yes.
And it kind of like washed over us like, oh my God, it did. Like,
it was just the like first movie in like there's this type of, well, not first. I mean, Prey did it pretty well as well. But,
there haven't been a lot of like genuinely good sequels to like older franchises.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
They just kind of like
because
injected life back into it.
Because 2049, even though it didn't do well at the time,
that was fantastic.
And it sucks for 2049 too because it didn't do well at the box office, but it has become culturally, it has become like a monolith. Like it's used in memes all the time.
Yeah,
and I know that's their memes, but like the reason they're memes is because there's like a core underlying relatable truth that is in that movie story that makes the memes funny and makes it relatable to people. And I don't necessarily think you can meme shit from this movie. I'm sure people will find a way. But
people already have from the trailers when he's like, there's something in the fucking water. The British guy.
Yeah, it's British guy.
Yeah, British guy. It's something in fucking water. He talks like that throughout the movie too. He's like, oh fuck, it's all. I governor, there's a bit of an alien in there, isn't there?
I want that cut of the movie.
Yeah, just everybody's super British. That was the joke we made. It's so funny because Andy doesn't have a British accent. As soon as he gets the whaling ship in him, and he becomes smarter, he gains a British accent. And it's like, that's Hollywood telling you someone becomes smart is he's getting a British accent.
Yeah, it's great. But also, the reason why is simply because the other guy has a British accent.
Yeah.
That's the logic in the movie. But our logic is what I decide as what I agree with.
That is what happens. British people are smarter because of the accent. If you have a British accent, you are inherently smarter than other people.
Well, on that note.
My
name is Patrick.
I'm Sim.
And we're Wizard Core.